Good evening, race fans, and welcome back to TRTM for tonight's coverage of the second round of MSC's ACC GT3 series here in Season 4, trailing away from what has been a fantastic opening round of the championship so far last week at Brands Hatch. As always, I'm Regan Clark. You join us here in Zolder, Belgium, in much drier conditions than what we saw in the opening round just last week here at the circuit Zolder. Founded in 1963 and comprised of 10 turns and just a smidge under 2.5 miles of FIA Grade 2, it was the former home or intermittent home therein of the Belgian Grand Prix from 1973 to 1984, as well as the one-off location for the Belgian Motorcycle Grand Prix in 1980. It's a routine home for the European Truck Racing Championships and NASCAR Euro Series, and its largest event of the year is its landmark, the 24 Hours of Zolder, which has ran on the year almost every year since 1983 with exemptions to 2020 during the wave of the COVID-19 lockdowns. Join us here on board with Owen Camus, and let's get right into the thick of things here as we have only 9 minutes left to go here in free practice. Well, getting a look then into where we found ourselves heading out of last week. For those of you who missed out in Brands Hatch, this is what we saw at the end of round 1 of 6 here in this championship. Nick Alexander won with Ferrari on his opening drive for the season ahead of Rudolf Slanieks and Jaden Johnson to round out the podium. Howard Dunn on debut at Aston Martin in wet and wild conditions in Brands made 4th place ahead of Lewis Mackenzie, with Owen Camus 6th place. Further down the line then, Jasper Prince in 7th with Josh Hudson 8th, Sean McNally 9th, and Steve O'Markey rounds out the top 10. For the rest of the field, we have Hoke, O'Brien, Morrissey, Dexter, Kovalik, Scaparo, Golf, otherwise going by another name over the course of this race. We'll catch on with them in due course. That was the bright gold Aston Martin on this grid. And then Donnie Linton finished in plumb last after a very controversial end to what looked to be a hopeful start to his race. DNFs for Alessandro Litti, Jenson Bolton and Wesley Ambrose. Fastest lap of the race, 1:31.355 by Alexander in his race-winning Ferrari 296. Taking a look then into what we have coming up today, the session itinerary sees the arrival of the first endurance-style race of the season, and that will comprise 60 minutes of racing with a single mandatory pit stop and 15 minutes of qualifying over the standard 12. During the 5-minute break coming up after qualifying and before the race itself, we'll be talking about recent developments at Subaru, but you join us in the last 9 minutes or so of free practice. In terms of what that comprises for the championship, as we stay on board here with Owen Camus, as it stands then, Nick Alexander leads ahead of Lanieks with Johnson in 3rd. Taking a look further down the field, we find Dunn in 4th place, and really it is sort of a mirror match of the results we had coming out of Brands Hatch as our first and only result of the season thus far. We see further down the line there, Mackenzie in 5th, Camus in 6th place on your screens at the moment with 8 points. We follow the FIA Formula 1 scoring structure of 25, 18, 15, 12, 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, and 1. We see there with Prince 8th, Hudson 9th, and McNally in 10th. So taking a look onto the timing charts, we see at the moment Owen Camus is fastest by 188 thousandths of a second to last round's race winner Nick Alexander in the number 13 Ferrari, making our way down through the Terlemanbocht here at the circuit Zolder. We are expectant much drier conditions for this race compared to Brands Hatch. We're also in for a bit of nighttime racing. We'll be starting around 6 o'clock local time, and with advanced timing we'll find ourselves in the span of just an hour of racing, seeing ourselves firmly into the nighttime conditions by the end of round 2. Behind them, Jaden Johnson makes 3rd place ahead of Rudolf Slanieks, and we see Gradian Zuzi making his way onto the grid. 144 here, the Ferrari number 144, currently 5th. And as it stands between himself and the nearest driver, that would be looking behind him to Donnie Linton's point of view to see the two currently separate as it stands there by just taking a rough gauge of it, 52 thousandths of a second, with Linton 6th, Howard Dunn 7th, and Daniel O'Brien in 8th. We just see quickly here the Aston Martin of Dunn to the line. Across the line he goes, sadly to no improvement needed by the scope of it there, about 500ths of a second to go up and level with the number 10 of Linton in 6th place. Picorni in 9th, and Ambrose rounds out the top 10. Catching back on board then with the leading car this session so far as we take a look into the discussion of balance of performance, of course coming from LFM. Aston Martin find themselves with premier advantage heading into round 2 with 15 kilos off of the V8 Vantage. Bentley in close second there with 10 kilos off. Porsche with 7 kilos off, and Ferrari with 3 kilos into the positive. Ford gains 2 kilos and still has that 20% restricted. That's an upgrade by 1 percentile over 19 at round 1. With McLaren on screen at the moment gaining 7 kilos. They don't find it anywhere near as difficult in this race today compared to Mercedes and BMW, 14 and 16 kilos. So taking a look with some of the Mercedes cars towards the back of the field, we see here where McNally will be seeing a great deal of difficulty managing an additional 14 kilos. And for the BMWs, we see they're even further behind. Ben Dexter in 18th place. Both of these cars struggling. We see a little further up ahead there, Kovalik in 13th. Well, we're not long on to the conversations then of the qualifying predictions, of which we yet again have a full top 10 for. As we see here, Nick Alexander to the line, the number 13, who currently leads the championship, then ahead of Camus, who's 6th place in the standings after round 1. Across the line goes Alexander. Couldn't find anything in that last lap. With about 4.5 minutes left to go, let's see if we can go and catch on board with the driver just about to start their flying lap. So as it stands there, we'll go to catch on board with Lee Evans with Mercedes AMG. Now, make no mistake of it, folks, this circuit, small as it may be, is not one to be so easily trifled with. 10 turns and just under 2.5 miles of FIA Grade 2. It is a very, very tough cookie to crack. So out through turn 1 we go at Erst corner. Very sharp left-hander, follows another sweeping sharp right here at turn 2. Sternwachtbocht on our run towards Canal at turn 3. This is where it starts to shallow out a little bit before we get a stab onto the brakes to get the car rotated in for Lucien Bianchi. Box at turn 4. Very easy, as you can see there, to wash over to the gravel on your left-hand side on the exit of turn 4. This brings us into our first real chaos spot of this track. That's going to be the Kleiner chicane, the aptly named Little Chicane, as a literal translation there, down at turn 5. Super sharp chicane, possibly the sharpest in circulation here on Assetto Corsa Competizione. Out through turn 6 at Butte Curve. This entire complex you see before you here comprises turn 7 on the track map, and this is Terlemenbocht. Very technical section here. We've seen drivers get all manner of out of shape through this area, and it gives us our prelude run down towards another heavy overtaking spot here at the Boulderberg Harschfeldbocht at turn 8. Down through Jochen-Rindt this very shallow chicane at turn 9 brings us in to the last chicane of 4 on this track, if I'm not mistaken there. This coming up being the 4th, down at turn 10, the Jackie X-Bocht. On the 444, we see then with Lee Evans currently on for an improvement over his personal best. We'll see where it ranks him as he gets across the line from 16th on the field. He crosses the line there for 14th after his second flying lap. You see on his way down towards the Kleiner chicane is Nick Alexander. Now, we've seen on tracks like Zolder, this is often the dominant territory for the mid-engine machinery, so it does present as quite a curious case to us to see that second row occupied by front-engine powerhouses at Bentley and Ford. At the moment, though, the dynamic duo of McLaren and Ferrari at the forefront of the field. 2 minutes left to go then in free practice before we're on to 15 minutes of qualifying, an extended session to coincide with the endurance regulations for round 2 of the championship, peeling away from what has been a standard format carried out through all of last season as well in season 3 in the short time it was in circulation of a 30-minute race and 12-minute qualifier. We see for Alexander, he's slowing down quite rapidly there on the exit of Jochen-Rindt turn 9, so he's coiling himself up for one last run here in free practice, so it appears, and we see him start to kick that off just on the run in towards turn 10. Behind him on track at the moment, so it stands, is the 332 Wesley Ambrose, who makes one of 2 Bentleys. You can see there right behind him is the other of the 2 Bentleys, Jaden Johnson. Went throughout last season as Jay Johnson, and even in the start of this season as Jay Johnson, has now moved over to using his full name, and we'll reflect that as well in our findings. Jaden Johnson 3rd at the moment with Wesley Ambrose in 10th. That marks 2 Bentleys in the top 10 at the moment, coming into the trailing end then of this free practice session. Now, to quickly pick up on a driver who's undergone a name change as well, we saw it was Ghost Golf, now Timo Fire in the number 67 Aston Martin. Presently then, the pit lane starts to become a little bit quiet here, with only the last fledglings of vehicles still out on track. Among them we see here new driver to the field. Now, originally having signed up for round 1, Grady and Zuzi in the number 144 makes their way down towards Boulderberg Harschfeldbocht. We'll see what they can do over the course of this. Right now, they find themselves 200ths away from Evans, who's recently shot up to 5th place there with Mercedes. So in spite of the less than ideal balance of performance lodged against AMG at this time, you can see even with his headlights off, he's running this instinctively, and so that seems to be the case here. Running in the blind between the lights here at Zolder. Evans showing absolutely no fear at the end of free practice. Now, he is being given the meatball flags there by the stewards, so he has got to switch those lights on at some point, but in ACC, it does appear to be the case, but you can keep those headlights off for upwards of about 2 to 3 laps before any kind of penalties run your way. And the moment you switch your lights on, that timer resets. So speaking of resets, there we have the end of free practice and firmly in to the topic of qualifying. So going to catch on board here as we see a flurry of drivers exiting the pit lane. We can see though furthest up the fray, Owen Camu in the number 1. Took round 4's race win at the trailing end of season 3. Has gone so far a single round in with a race win drought after less than ideal results for him out in Brands Hatch's wild conditions that gave rise to the start of this season. Taking a look at the qualifying predictions, just as it was last week, it's Owen Camu predicted at pole position. 127.727 up ahead of Jaden Johnson in 2nd and Nick Alexander in 3rd. Jenson Bolton in 4th ahead of Daniel O'Brien in 5th. Wesley Ambrose in 6th with Grady and Zuzi in 7th. Bartek Kowolik in 8th with Howard Dunn 9th. Milan Picorni rounds out the top 10 with a 130.066. Worth taking a look at some of those gaps. Some of the largest gaps we see there is between the leading pair, Johnson and Camu, separate, as our findings indicated, was about 705,000. So that's one of the largest gaps we have between any two drivers on this grid. So Camu looking to steal round 2 away now that the rain is gone and we've got dry conditions to play with over the course of our first nighttime quali. Also worth pointing out the gap we're seeing there in the 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th position. We see between those drivers just a little over 0.2 of a second, comprising 4 positions. But we're about to catch on board here with Owen Camu for the first of the flying lap. So down across the line goes the number 1 McLaren. And we'll stay on board here with Camu. And this is what's going to present itself as a rather unique risk for the drivers coming into this race. Nighttime conditions is always the great divider for skill on these drivers because it often preys upon their memory because they aren't using the same kind of visual cues they'd be using in the daylight, where a lot of their sort of external stimuli for where do I start hitting the brakes, where do I start accelerating, what part of the track do I aim for, is often reinforced by the presence of sunlight. So when we come into nighttime here, this is a lot more the kind of conditions for the experienced variety. So those who know Zolder very, very well, almost like the backs of their hands, will find great advantage here in nighttime conditions with visibility far lower than what we would see in a daytime race. You can see though, and this is a bit of a unique not strategy, trait I was about to say there, for the circuit Zolder. It does actually find itself with quite a decent amount of lighting available, and now not every track finds itself so privileged to have some. I know Brands Hatch doesn't have much, if any, lighting by comparison. That's where we were last week for round 1 of the championship. We see here down to the line Owen Camu for the benchmark time of qualifying. Then an extended qualifying session here for the endurance format. Let's see what Camu can do with it. Across the line 128.105. Then from behind him the number 67, Timo Fire with Aston Martin, but so it appears was to start a flying lap. So we quickly cut across here to see with among the drivers heading to the line here, the number 108, Jaden Johnson with Bentley. We see plenty of drivers already having invalidated. Johnson was not one among them. Goes second fastest there. Across the line comes the 777. Liam Morrissey momentarily in the scope of 3rd place. Sean McNally says no thank you and goes up to 2nd with AMG. Coming across the line next, we'll see onto the timing charts. Was there the introduction of Alan O'Brien and Milan Picorni, Wesley Ambrose as well, and Bartek Kowolik. So now we see a broadly different top 5, but still leading that fray is Owen Camu with McLaren. Currently tucks up behind Ben Dexter's BMW down through turn 7. Having a bit of trouble there. We see Daniel O'Brien, the second of the O'Briens here after the 66 put times on the charts first, goes momentarily 3rd fastest. Both of them now shoved off of the 2nd and 3rd step of the podium, as now we see the introduction of Aston Martin's Howard Dunn. Now this is quite an exceptional feat because of course we said to keep a close eye out for Dunn over the course of round 1. That was because we knew wet conditions were super favourable to the Aston Martin. I was not expecting such a spring of the step here in a dry conditions for Aston. We've known that this manufacturer has struggled in the past in circulation to keep with some of the others here at Zolder. We know on first account myself that this car can be a bit of a handful at Zolder. Howard Dunn though making light work of it so far, up and ahead of McNally and O'Brien, but now tucked in behind Nick Alexander, who goes 775 thousandths off the fastest, still held on to hand over fist here by Owen Camus. Crossed the line a moment ago, Rudolph's Laniacs for 4th place, up and ahead of McNally, forcing O'Brien out of the top 5. Then Laniacs himself now looks upon relegation spot to the top 5 with Donnie Linton's introduction to the top 5, now 4th. Number 777 and number 29 coming to the line. In the case of the 777, Liam Morrissey stays towards the back of the field for the timing charts there, now 14th after the most recent string of events for him. The number 35 and the number 66 crossed the line a moment ago. We saw for Alan O'Brien now ahead of Daniel O'Brien. So the battle of the O'Briens here for the control of the 4th row of the grid. As for the 35, Bartek Kowalik now towards the back of the top 10, but still up and ahead of Wesley Ambrose. As I say that, the introduction there of Lee Evans pushes Kowalik down to 11th place and out of the top 10. We see some of the closest gaps start to emerge here. 100th of a second we're seeing in between McNally and O'Brien, that being Alan O'Brien. Nearest to the line, number 1. So Owen Camus could still be looking at an improvement into the 127s. Currently 128, 105 to beat. Of course, with nighttime conditions comes a cooler track across the line. Couldn't find anything over his personal best. So with the sun tucked away beyond the horizon and we're firmly in nighttime conditions for this qualifying session, the track will be cooler off than it was in the daylight. It was about 20 degrees on track during the course of free practice. It has now dropped 5 degrees down to 15 over the course of this qualifying session. Now, it's not going to make a landslide difference in terms of qualifying times, but it is going to be noticeable. There will be a little smidge off of the predicted times. Those were mostly run during optimum daylight conditions. We're in optimum nighttime conditions by contrast on the run into the real qualifying session at hand. Meanwhile, for Alexander, gets closer and closer, having nearly split the gap down the middle there from 7 tenths to 47 hundredths of a second there. Across the line comes the number 88. We see Daniel O'Brien. Can he go up and ahead of Alan O'Brien is the real question. Across the line he goes. Absolutely. Up to 6th place now, up and ahead of Milan Picorni and Rudolph's Laniacs and Sean McNally. 444 across the line a moment ago. Lee Evans still holds on to the top 5. So even against the struggle Mercedes had under BOP, they are adamant to see a top 5 in the hands of a driver like Evans, a driver we know already is rather committed to his craft when it comes to this machine. We saw him in the opening round of VSR earlier this week. And he's committed to the drive with Mercedes in that series as well. Now, he was possibly most recognised, as we just saw a momentary exchange there up at the front. Momentarily, Alexander fastest by 100th, and then that's immediately sliced down by 410 thousandths of a second by Owen Camus, back up to the fastest time. Back on the topic here of Evans. We did see him possibly most iconic use of vehicle was in his time with Nissan. We see this as almost a universal treatment of the GTR after Season 10 of VSR. A lot of the VSR mainstay drivers, like Evans and like McNally, have now dropped the GTR for greener pastures, no pun intended here, for AMG. On the exit of Turn 7, we see a little bit of struggle there for the number 86, Sebastian Scaparo, on the exit of Terleman-Bocht. Now, getting on with this current scope of things at the front of the field as we get well in past the halfway mark of qualifying. Alexander was momentarily at the lead of this quali session, now albeit by only 10 thousandths of a second or a single hundredth. It still lays the precedent in that Ferrari could be hunting down McLaren in this quali session. Right now, it really does seem like the ball is in Owen Camus' court and it's time to play. 6.5 minutes left to go in this quali session, and he still holds on to things by tenths, less so than 100. So he's got command of things at the moment, but anything often can and will happen in qualifying sessions this razor thin. It's always worth expecting the unexpected. In the meantime as well, we see Howard Dunn up to 3rd. Lee Evans now in 4th place with Donnie Linton in 5th. Now, I believe that's because... No, it's not been because of Johnson, so I think it is genuinely a case here. I'm pretty sure there was a driver that was 3rd place that disconnected. Otherwise, it has been a brilliant spur of performance found here by Howard Dunn. Do not count out the Aston Martin when conditions get tough. Albeit we're not seeing anywhere near as extreme the weather that we had last week at Brands Hatch, but still, less than optimal conditions for tyre heat is still an area that the Aston Martin excels in. We see there Jaden Johnson up to 3rd with Bentley, another dark horse manufacturer on this field. We spoke about it in Brands Hatch, mirroring some of the same points we illustrated in our time covering Season 2 of the Console Endurance Series, but really it is somewhat of a cheat code, that car, because it has a lot of the same defining traits in terms of its handling characteristics, in terms of its setup characteristics as the current generation Ford Mustang, albeit without any of the sizable weight and restriction penalties. So it is really it's a technological loophole. It's genius what these drivers and teams have been able to do with the Continental, and that's what's led to it having this real cultural renaissance on the grid. It was a car that was often considered outmoded for modern meta, but we've seen in the last couple of months especially, the Bentley can and often will lay in really competitive times across multiple championships, and it seems to be the case here. Our most recent case study is going to be that 108. The transition away from Ferrari for Jaden Johnson was evidently one worth making, as we saw when he took home a podium at Brands Hatch, and right now seems poised to start on a podium here in the circuit Zolder. 112 nearest to the line, so let's go to catch on board here with Rudolph's Laniacs. He was also on the podium over the course of the last race. We see them just move up to 7th. Across the line comes Johnson from 3rd, stays there. It's about 3/10 away, actually 3/10 2/1000 away from Nick Alexander. Currently only 3 cars to be comprised within a single second of the fastest time. We see here currently set by Owen Cameron, 1:27.522 to beat as he crosses the line. Will it be an improvement? Not so it appears this time around, but he's still got about 4 minutes left to go before the end of quali. Number 35 nearest to the line. We've got to catch on board Bartek Kovalik with BMW. We'll see what he can do as he crosses the line, 14th at the moment, and stays there over the course of that last lap. We are seeing a lot of those single 100th gaps start to creep in here. We're seeing it again with O'Brien and McNally. It was one of the original ones we commented upon. We see McNally to the line. As it stands, then stays within 100th of O'Brien, but still holds primary position there for the fight of 12th on the 6th row, starting up and alongside Jonathan Barrett, so it seems. Alexander on for possibly 2 more laps of qualifying, as his penultimate run of things seems to come to a little bit of a shaky, or I suppose not penultimate, whatever the word is for penultimate, I suppose is the best term for it. On his 3rd to last lap was a bit of a rocky start. Number 112 across the line again was Laniak, stays in 7th place. You can see now 600ths away from fellow Ford Donnie Linton. Number 144 and 44 heading to the line. We see there in the foreground was Sean McNally. 144 across the line. So Grady and Zuzi across the line there for what is currently 18th place. And that's for the 44. We see here for Lewis McKenzie, currently 15th. Nearest the 68. So if we can catch on board here, Steve O'Markey from 20th across the line stays there. Number 35 coming in from behind him, so that would be for Kovalik, and jumps up as we just catch him there from 14th to 9th on the field. Breaches the top 10, pushing O'Brien out, that being Daniel O'Brien, and now pushes Jonathan Barrett to the back of the top 10 at the moment. Number 247 and number 88 across the line. We see there Daniel O'Brien fights back, pushes Kovalik to 10th, now himself up to 9th place. That's for the 247. Ben Dexter, 16th at the moment. With a minute and a half left to go in qualifying, we're seeing many drivers make their way onto their last flying laps. For Wesley Ambrose, there was noted there an improvement over his personal best, but he stays in 8th place at the moment, getting closer to Laniacs in 7th. So far, it looks fairly close between the 3rd and 4th rows of this grid, and still divided by about half a second as it stands right now. The front row, Nick Alexander. Got my Alexanders mixed up there. Nick Alexander and Owen Camu at the front of the field. Is worth pointing out if any of the Euro Titans lads do be happening to listening in on this stream. Definitely worth checking this series out. Fantastic riot of a series we're seeing here. Nick Alexander, not to be confused with Alan Alexander. Don't believe they're related either. Pretty common surname. Currently 2nd then. 573 thousandths away from Camu, who has now come back into the pit, so he's satisfied with what he's been capable of doing so far. 127.522, the fastest lap we see for Jaden Johnson. I believe also in the pit lane there. So Bentley contempt for 3rd place start. Can Aston Martin stand to challenge them? Needs about 4/10 here in the hands of Howard Dunn, but as we see a rocky start to things on this flying lap, brings a very early end to it and an end to his qualifying endeavours as he starts a very respectable 4th place. Keep a close eye on that second row. All British manufacturers there, Bentley and Aston Martin. Not the likely candidates you'd expect to see over the front row. We see here with Alexander to the line. Needs 573 thousandths for pole, and he's got just enough time there for one more flying lap. So this will be one very closely awaited. And we'll catch on with the number 13 as and when he gets to the checkered line here at the end of quali. We see the nearest to the line at the moment, number 44 out through Boulderberg, Harshville, Boctis, Lewis McKenzie. Behind him, the 144 Grady and Zuzi. So 2 of the Ferraris coming down towards the line here. In towards Jackie X at turn 10. Down across the line then goes McKenzie, stays 15th. As for Nzuzi across the line from 19th, goes up to 16th there. So the 2 Ferraris start on the 8th row. Nearest to the line, number 68. So we're going to go and catch on board here now with, if we can find them, Steve O'Markey with Mercedes AMG. In the 2Cs Motorsport, number 68. Down to the line he goes on the exit of turn 10. From 20th, stays there at the end of this session. Number 86 coming into the pit, so that's the end of the road for Sebastian Scaparo, unable to put a time on the chart. So nearest to the line on our current observations is Donnie Linton. Can he breach the top 5? Only needs there 105 thousandths over Lee Evans. Across the line he goes. Can he make 5th? He's so close there, but off by 27 thousandths. Close but no cigar there. Linton starts on the 3rd row, up and alongside that of Lee Evans. We see there at the end of that session, the number 13 called it quits as well. So for Nick Alexander, he'll start 2nd place. It's Owen Camus on pole position then for round 2 of season 4, the MSC ACC GT3 series here at the first endurance classification race of the season. 60 minutes of racing and a single mandatory pit stop set to follow. Now, the reason it's called an endurance race, for those of you who might be a bit confused to hear us say the word endurance and then only see an hour-long race, the majority of these races this season are only 30 minutes long. So this is, by that technicality, an endurance race. But nonetheless, Owen Camus on pole. Taking a look back into the itinerary then, we'll be talking in a moment's time about recent developments to have come out about Subaru in future projects, potentially pertaining to a return to the World Rally Championship, and we'll discuss whether or not its claims are efficable, whether or not they're valid at this point. A lot of rumours swirling about developments over at Subaru Technica International. Then we get on to a 60-minute race at around 20 minutes past 8 Greenwich Mean Time. That's a rough estimate, so don't take that 100%, with one mandatory pit stop for both fuel and tyres. So then, getting into that discussion proper. Now, there have been some very interesting news to have come out in the last 2 weeks pertaining to Subaru. On March 10th, Subaru filed a patent with the Japan Patent Office showing what appears to be, as we bring up the pictures on screen here, what looks to be a brand new successor to the WRX STI, mimicking a lot of the same features of the elder 2008 model, which was a very controversial generation because it was the first of the hatchback variety. The model is strikingly similar to STI Performance B model that was shown at the recent Tokyo Mobility Show, and this could very well indicate that Subaru is gearing up for full-scale production of the unit under the iconic STI label. In terms of ramifications for rally, this may not be so black and white on Subaru's verdict to possibly return to the WRC in the upcoming 2027 regulation wave. While it's very likely that this could serve as a future platform for Subaru's American division, having used the Impreza extensively in the American Rally Association Championships, a move to the WRC for Subaru is not yet financially feasible as a factory effort. Subaru withdrew their world rallying efforts due to the 2008 and 2009 financial crisis and didn't return to the regulations as they tilted away from the 2-litre platform to a smaller 1.6-litre unit. The issue at the time being that Subaru struggled to find the means to produce a high-performance 1.6-litre turbo unit for their current lineup without noticeable trade-offs in quality and performance. It didn't stop them from later doing it much further down the line for the XV and the Levorg, which is a 1.6-litre DET engine, if I'm not mistaken, or DIT engine, direct injection turbo. They also used this in the trailing end for the 6th generation Impreza. Another thing to consider on Subaru's possible re-entry to the World Rally Championship is business. Toyota owns 20% of Subaru, with both brands having collaborated on engine technology in the last decade for a variety of models. A mainline WRC entry would present a significant thorn in the side for Toyota, having represented Japan alone in both Rally 1 and Rally 2 with the GR Yaris in recent years. Subaru committing to either part as part of the new manufacturer regs would stifle Toyota's ability to tackle Czech giants, Skoda, I'm reading the script here and I was like, I really couldn't get that part out, and Korean giants Hyundai, something they're likely very strongly against. Perhaps then, this possible model we're seeing here could very well serve as a much needed sales boost to Subaru's current lineup to justify a factory effort to the WRC in the future. Much like what we saw with the GR Yaris, we know that the homologation wave that was present at the start of Rally 1's initial regulation sweep in 2022 is coming back for 2027. So Subaru, if they really wanted to, would need to start building now. And that appears to be, with this patent filed only, looking here, 10 days ago, to be a very likely claim forward. Well, bringing about the end of our discussions on Subaru, let's get into the discussions of Season 4, Round 2's grid. It's Owen Camu on pole position, up alongside Nick Alexander in second place, with Jaden Johnson in third. And then we see behind him Howard Dunn in fourth place, Lee Evans in fifth, with Donnie Linton in sixth, Rudolph Lanieks in seventh, and Wesley Ambrose eighth place. Daniel O'Brien in ninth, and Bartek Kowalik rounds out the top 10. Then from behind we have Picorni, Barrett, McNally, O'Brien, that being Alan O'Brien, McKenzie, Nzuzi, Dexter, Fire, Stewart, Morrissey, Markey, Morgan, Scaparo, and Pereira, having joined very late into the session. We find ourselves in daylight conditions, but with an accelerated time frame, we will find ourselves quickly seeing the sun set over the course of the upcoming 60 minutes of racing to follow here in Zolder, with the sun having set beyond the horizon by the time we see the checkered flag. But for whom could we be seeing first among the fray to the checkered flag? It looks very likely to be one of 5 likely candidates. I would say add a push 6 there, considering all 3 of those top 3 rows. Camu, Alexander, Johnson, Dunn, Evans, and Linton, very likely candidates there. And we see quite the cornucopia of manufacturers. 6 positions there at the front of the field, 6 different manufacturers: McLaren, Ferrari, Bentley, Aston Martin, Mercedes, and Ford. As we get in towards the 30-second warning, we'll be catching on board then with Owen Camu, who will lead things away to the inside at turn 1, with Alexander riding up alongside him there. Johnson and Dunn on the row right behind them is going to make for a very interesting second row to follow there. Aston Martin and Bentley on the second row. Waiting for the rest of the grid to pull away then. So it's quite an interesting thing to come away from round 1 to have seen how well Alexander performed in his opening round. His debut drive, mind you, to this series. And we were possibly looking on the expectation of yet another series of Ferrari-led domination, leading away from what was the very shortly lived Season 3 that went on to be won by John O'Driscoll in the number 420 Ferrari 296. We see that Alexander seems to be the likely next candidate up to inherit the Ferrari throne, but we see very capable challenge here from McLaren. Now, albeit this was stifled in that opening round, it was a troublesome open to the season here for Owen Camu, who took the last race win of Season 3, I should remind you as well, in Monza, in the trailing end of that very short championship compared to the 6 rounds we have to hand today. And taking a look at that calendar, better late than never to bring up the discussion of where we'll be heading out after this round. With Zolder today here on the 20th of March, on the 27th, we'll be heading to the Grand Prix Circuit Silverstone to make the second and last of our British leg of the journey here after Brands Hatch at round 1. Then we'll be heading to the Hungaroring past the season midway into round 4, then Zandvoort, then Barcelona to bring us into the trailing end of the championship here for Season 4. For those of you curious about any future broadcasts coming up into this weekend on the run through to the 21st and 22nd of March, well, we've got 3 races coming up over the course of Saturday and Sunday. 2 races on Saturday, 1 on Sunday. Coming up tomorrow at around 1 o'clock Greenwich Mean Time will be our coverage of a special one-off Ginetta Cup race at Silverstone with the folks over at the High Caliber Community League. Then heading in to the trailing end of Saturday, we're on for the season finale, the 6 hours of Indianapolis coming up in Season 2 of the Console Endurance Series by NLRL. Then, speaking of NLRL, heading into Sunday, of course, sees round 6 of the NLRL Sunday League creep around as we head into the second half of the season proper after what has been a very controversial fortnight of racing over on that series. Today, though, we're here for round 2 of season 4 of MSC's ACC GT3 series. Making our way then out through turn 9, heading down towards turn 10. One hour of racing set to follow then here in Zolder. We see the grid form up. 24 cars in all, so 12 either side of it. None from the pit lane this time around as we make our way round turn 10. Number 13 versus number 1, Ferrari and McLaren over the front row, Aston Martin and Bentley in the row behind. Making our way then down towards the line, 60 minutes of racing set to follow the first endurance race of the season. And we see those starting from the pit lane now is the 68 of Steve O'Markey, so that makes 23 cars on the field, one from the pit lane as we get towards the line. We're green and racing here in Zolder. A great start from the front row. We can see a brilliant getaway for the number 13 to stay up and alongside the number 1 on our run down through into turn 1. Number 13's got the run on him here, so it looks to be the case where Nick Alexander and Owen Camus could get side by side on the run down through Sternvacht. Behind them, a great start as well by Jaden Johnson. As we see there, a little bit of contact between the Ferrari and the McLaren. Camus muscled out of the race lead as he drops down to second. We've now parked right up behind him there, the Bentley of Jaden Johnson, almost eclipsing the sides of that McLaren as we exit out through Lucien Bianchi box. Meanwhile, we see with Camus looking his way up the inside at the Clyde chicane. This could get a little bit hairy here as forced to jump over the second half. Goes Nick Alexander, currently now in the lead of the race. We see in the background, though, was trouble for Wesley Ambrose. And as we see heading down through the Clyde chicane, a little bit of further trouble there for Pete Morgan and Liam Morrissey. Checking in then. It's Alexander from Camus, from Johnson, Dunn and Linton in the top 5. Great start as well by Howard Dunn to hold off an advance by Donnie Linton. We see behind him as well, in the case of a fight for 5th place, we see looking up the inside goes Lee Evans with Mercedes. Couldn't find anything of it at Boulderberg Harshbell Bock, but can he find it on the exit as we run in towards turn 9? It's a very likely chance here. He's got the run out through turn 9. We see him now up and ahead of Donnie Linton. Clash of the Titans here, Mercedes and Ford, with Linton looking up the inside. It's a real squeeze and it's a bit of contact there, and that becomes quite a quick issue as it arises there for Donnie Linton on the exit of turn 10. Taking a look, this is just one incident into another. Over the course of that run out through turn 10, we see for Donnie Linton, he now drops much further in onto an advance by Timo Fire, the Aston Martin tucking in behind him. We see, though, one tiny little tap there, and he was almost glued on to the front bumper, so it was just being taken for a ride on the exit of turn 10. Nothing he could have done in that situation, given where he was positioned. We see even more trouble arise here on the exit of Sternvacht. Ignore the slight desync from our end. That's just on our point of view. The drivers themselves aren't suffering with the same fate. The 112 of Laniacs, however, is suffering, as we see down in 21st place there. Big washout out through Sternvacht and Canal for the number 112, though no apparent signs of damage. Looking back up towards the front of that field, we do just quickly see, oh, it's contact in the background there. Ben Dexter turned around by Grady and Zuzi in the 144. Get a look at this on the replays as we bring the replays right back out. This is to be cut across here to the fight between Nzuzi and Dexter down through to turn 5. This is where it all went sour for the pair. We do catch back on board here to see that there is an ongoing fight for the lead between 3 drivers. We see looking his way up the inside for a moment down through to Jackie Xbox was the 108 of Jaden Johnson. Having retaken the mantle of the lead, though, Owen Camus in the number 1, 129.980 on his last lap just gone. Already putting some distance up over Nick Alexander and Jaden Johnson, trying to open the gaps up as early as possible. In terms of pit stop strategy, we are expecting that 50-50 for a 60-minute race. So we are looking for 30 minutes in the opening stint, 30 minutes in the closing stint. So a pit at the halfway mark dead on will be the bulk of pit stops expected today. Any deviations from that are likely on an emergency basis. We see at the moment what has quickly dissolved from the fight of first is very much so now the fight of second place. Alexander versus Johnson, with Alexander defending. Johnson attacking behind them. Howard Dunn, who's carved a clear line of things away now from Linton, courtesy of that incident with Evans earlier on. Evans now takes up the helm of 5th place. We see here for the fight of 2nd. We see for Jaden Johnson, he's very enthusiastic to look away at the inside. I don't think he realizes just how large the Bentley is, or perhaps he does, and he's using this as almost a little bit of psychological warfare on his opponents, knowing that if he's crazy enough to put a car that large up the inside, I might have to move over. I think that's what he's banking on for these drivers. We see, though, trouble for him out through Boulderberg, Harshville, and Howard Dunn immediately takes up the helm of 3rd place. It's got to catch on board with these two. As we quickly just take a peek in here, we saw was momentary fighting there for Timo Fire. Let's go and take a look on board with the Bentley of Johnson. This is in the fight for 3rd place, so the Battle of Britain, so it would seem. Aston Martin versus Bentley. V8 against V8. Who comes out on top in the fight for 3rd place? Howard Dunn goes very early on the brakes. Jaden Johnson very enthusiastic on the brakes down through turn 1, so that battle ended as quickly as it started there for 3rd place. Johnson returns to the podium. The Aston Martin is just going to cling on for him there in the number 23. Out through turn 3 we go. Taking a look in further down the field, we catch on with another Bentley here, who's actually looking rather close to a top 5 himself. This is Wesley Ambrose in the number 332. As it stands there, he's only 2.6 seconds away from Lee Evans. Behind him, we have a fight for 7th there. Donnie Linton versus Bartek Kovalik. We see trouble for Ruben Pereira as the yellow flags come out past turn 10. Getting a look in then with Kovalik v Linton. So we see Linton's got the run around the outside. We see there the Mustang emerging as we make our way in through to turn 6. There was a little occurrence of contact. That was between Kovalik and McNally, as McNally tried to sneak his way up through the same line of Linton. And there was a little bit of argy-bargy there as we made the crest into turn 6. But Kovalik, he's not going to be happy. He's lost 2 positions over the course of 2 sectors. It's not looking good. We see, looking on with, there was actually momentarily what looked to be a fight down through Boulderberg Harshville. Oh, it's not a fight. It's definitely not a fight. Taking a look in there, Daniel O'Brien is a wrong way around on the exit of Boulderberg Harshville. Now having to fall way down the order. You can see they're passing him up. Is the number 15 there? Is that Stewart, having joined very late into this race? Back in the green flags then. Reluctantly so for O'Brien. You can see behind him there, Pete Morgan and Ben Dexter fighting for 21st on the field. We see here, this is Craig Stewart, number 15. Meanwhile, number 86 brings out the yellow flags. Number 66 very nearly does the same. The 86, that was Scaparo down through turn 10. We see for the 68, this is Steve O'Markey in 23rd. Getting a brief look in here with Sean McNally. This is the possible fight of 7th. Now, we saw him get a little bit elbows out in his approach to things up and alongside Bartek Kovalik just last lap on the run up through the crest here at turn 6. He's got clear line of sight, though, not only on the car in 7th, but you can see just off in the distance there, that bright green indicator on track would be that of Lee Evans' 444 Mercedes, currently up in 5th. Speaking of, we see here Evans down through Boulderberg Harshville box. Right behind him is Wesley Ambrose. Up in front, it looks like battling has all but dissipated now. Dunn having tucked in nearly some 3 seconds behind Johnson. Johnson, as it stands there, nearly some 2 seconds behind Alexander. We do have more yellow flags, and now we're going to pull up the large display here to try and tackle them head on. C4. The 88 was momentarily in part of that one as well. The number 15, Craig Stewart, is facing the wrong way here. So the yellow flags were out. He's back into the pit lane. So back into green flag conditions just as quickly as that incident started. We see for the 247 getting up and around what looks to be a very wounded 29. That's Milan Picorni out through Boulderberg Harshville at turn 8. That looks like big trouble there for the Ferrari. He'll be into the pits very early in this race. You can see severe front end damage. And judging on the wobbling as well, likely some steering damage as well for the Ferrari. As it stands then coming into what is about to be the end of the opening 10 minutes of racing here, as the sun, you can see, is starting to set beyond the horizon. We'll be into nighttime racing not long from now. It's Owen Camus in the lead with Nick Alexander in 2nd. Jaden Johnson in 3rd, Howard Dunn 4th, and Lee Evans rounds out the top 5. Wesley Ambrose 6th, Donnie Linton in 7th, Sean McNally in 8th. But as you can see for McNally, this is a curious case as he actually drops position out there to the back of the top 10. Timo Fire now up to 9th in the number 67 Aston. Oh, off in the background there was a bit of trouble for Nzuzi. That on number 144 pitched in down through tournament box. Rejoins close there to Barrett, but no trouble as we get on the run out through turn 7. We see for McNally, he's already back into the fight, so claws out here for his fight with the 67. But Timo Fire, he's got far less damage to nurse compared to that Mercedes. You can see something was a little bit wobbly in this last lap for the number 4. And there is some scratching to be shown on his car in terms of nearby fights, Nzuzi and Barrett. But of course, we saw how that opened, so it's unlikely that we'll see it progress into a fight. I think it is a case where he is just hemorrhaging time. We see what was the previous end of a fight here. It's Markey versus Scaparo. We see for Nzuzi, it only gets worse for him as now he drops in position behind Alan O'Brien. Rudolph's Laniacs could have a stab here on the exit of turn 1. Something to point out, just a worthy bit of information here. 1.7 seconds and dropping is the gap between Nick Alexander and Jaden Johnson. So bear in mind, he's already on the podium. He's looking at back-to-back podiums. He will, by this metric, continue to be a championship contender in his own respect. Right now, that starts with getting up and ahead of that Ferrari. If he can start outscoring the number 13, well, yes, it's unlikely he'll overtake the championship right here and now. He can definitely do quite a serious blow to it on the run out of round 2. The confidence that Johnson's got is the same that Ambrose has on a track like this. Now, what makes the Bentley so special here in Zolder? And we saw it in the albeit 5 hours of running we had in the 5 hours of Zolder, previously 6 hours of Zolder at the start of the CES Season 2. Much earlier in 2025 is the fact here that the Bentleys can tackle those curbs with reckless abandon. They've got some of the best suspension for this kind of track. They're quite soft around the edges, these cars, so they're very, very easy to get up and over those curbs. Very confident with changes in stability. It's not an easy car to upset the balance of. It is very steadfast in its approach to the curb. So in a track here, especially when you see down at the Kleiner chicane, down through Turleman box and down through Jackie X box, you can tackle the curbs, and that's what's giving him that competitive edge, that and wonderful comfort in that vehicle. He's not under any kind of pressure here, any kind of stress. That cannot be said the same for the AMGs. We've noted as well in the last couple of months, AMG's been on the rise, but it has definitely been with great difficulty. We've had a few different angles of it. We've had from the folks here that we see as season regulars out of VSR, such as McNally and Evans. We've got word out of moves by Euro Titans when we saw Alan Alexander move over to Mercedes in the Sunday League. We've got Ian Skeen with Mercedes having moved away from Aston Martin. And we also have the folks over at AXRL, which gave us a fantastic insight on the AMG and how it sort of reacts to certain setup characteristics, how trying to set this car up is totally counterintuitive to any other car of its type. It's what makes the AMG such a unique car, but given that one can master its various quirks, this car can be a super competitive offering in spite of its elder years. Of course, 2020 was the last technical update for the AMG GT3, at least on this game, and that leaves it when put up against cars like the BMW M4, the Ford Mustang, the McLaren 720S, and the Ferrari 296 is upwards of about 3 to 4 years off the technical gap now. And in those 3 to 4 years, manufacturers have found a way to make the cars a lot more comfortable to set up and a lot more persuasive in the corners. So the AMG, like another car that was introduced around the same time, the 2018 Aston Martin V8 Vantage, is a car that of its time was a fantastic bit of kit, but is struggling in its elder years. That's evidenced by the fact that Mercedes themselves in real life are developing a replacement to the AMG GT. We commented on that earlier in last year when the first development images were released for the AMG GT replacement. As for Aston Martin, of course, they released the innovative Evo package, and that's definitely breathed a lot of new life into the Vantage this late on in its development cycle. As it stands then with that facelift package, Aston Martin doesn't show any signs of abandoning this platform like they did the last one. Oh, in the background there, trouble for Barrett. Oh my goodness, sorry, I had to mute the mic there to sneeze, but oh my goodness, what happened there for the for the 999? I mean, he put on a bit of a show, don't get me wrong. I mean, A+ for showmanship, but it's not done him a great deal. You can see there, hits the donuts, and oh yeah, no, hit from the back there. collision with the rear bumper off of the 144 Gradient Zuzi. Heavy damages there for the Ferrari. Zuzi having rejoined the circuit is Jonathan Barrett, a considerable distance down the field. Let's go and catch on board here with Dunn v Alexander. As now we see in the time since, some of that madness created by that incident has opened the doors up for a move by Johnson over Alexander as he now drops to third place. The sun catching the eyes of these drivers as they make their way in through to turn 4 at Lucian Bianchi box. Let's stay on board here with the Ferrari. Looking over his rear view as we see there catching up at a fast rate of knots is the Aston Martin. Howard Dunn has a chance here to see the podium and he's up and ahead of the Ferrari by the time we hit turn 5. Something is clearly awry then with the Ferrari of Nick Alexander. He's got 15 minutes before his optimum pit stop. And as it stands, something is clearly not connecting with the rest of that car. That number 13 has dropped 2 positions in the span of a lap. And could possibly drop 3 with, we can see there in the background, the imminent arrival 5 seconds away of Lee Evans. And we can see even worse now for the case here of Nick Alexander out through Terlemenbach, drops considerable time. We can start to see what has actually gone on for him there at the front. Take a look over that front left quarter. Considerable damage on the 13. So in the time since, something has gone awry. We've not been able to capture what it was when we were focusing on that very bizarre incident between Morrissey and Nzuzi. For the number 13, he is having to sort of bite his tongue here and hope that the next 14 minutes can give him enough to stay in that top 5. Now, while this isn't necessarily championship ending, it is serving as quite a dangerous challenge now as to whether or not he'll be far and away in the lead of things heading in to the halfway mark of the season at round 3 of the championship, with Johnson having gained considerable ground. He'll be up 18 points extra over his current standing. In terms of the gap between himself and Alexander, well, that'll be currently 6 points in benefit, so that is going to put him very close, I think by about 2 to 3 points there between the pair at the forefront of the championship. Roughly there. That's an exact maths. We're trying to get the calculations to you a little later on in the stream. 44 minutes left to go. We see Nzuzi and Morrissey, both of them in the pit lanes now. Oh, hang on. No, hang on. Take a look in the replays there. I don't think it was it for Morrissey or was it for the 999? Because if it's the 999, then that was Jonathan Barrett. Let's just quickly report back on that incident. And as we see here, it was for the 999. So yeah, our mistakes there to Morrissey. That wasn't Morrissey caught up in the incident. Though same livery, worth pointing out, between the pair. And Nzuzi on his way out then. 13 minutes early to the pit lane and a considerably longer stop. And that looks to be possibly the same scope of things casing up at the moment for Ruben Pereira. The number 8, heavy front end damage, but he's staying out. Definitely worth getting a look in here with the Mercedes of Lee Evans, because he is sizing up a move to 4th place. Seeing that last lap, a considerable drop in performance for the number 13 Ferrari, and that gap has started to tilt even further down. It was around 2 to 3 seconds after that incident down at Terlemen, but it's now 1.6 seconds, as you can see there, the sun just setting beyond the horizon. One of the more iconic aspects of the positioning of Zolder is it sits right next to a wind farm. So you get to see out through turns 2 and 3 the huge turbines there, generating power for the region of Hoist and Zolder. So we see moving over to allow the number 13 through is Ruben Pereira, a driver we spoke of just a moment ago. Out through turn 6 goes the 444. We'll leave you on board with Lee Evans here in what looks to be the prospective fight of 4th place. We'll be back to you in just a moment. And in the time having since watched on with this fight for 4th place, we see that it's been very slow, if at all, progress up towards that look of 4th place. So that's quickly killed off chances at this point of the race for the fight of 4th. As that gap, what was getting closer to a 1.4 second margin, now struggles to even maintain its point of view within 2 seconds. Steve O'Markey there, caught in between Alexander and Evans on the run through to turn 10. Will be quickly ushered out of the way. You can see they're already signaling, so that's great sportsmanship there from the 68. He's made himself very, very aware of the other drivers on track. We see a possible fight coming on here. 9/10 of a second in between McNally and Fire. Timo Fire in the number 67 went by Ghost Golf over the course of round 1 and was reflected as such in the standings. You see on his second race, he could very well be one of 2 Aston Martins inside of that top 10. That makes one of 2 Bentleys as well. So Aston Martin and Bentley treated to quite a display here in round 2 of season 4. As we're out past the first 20 minutes of racing, Owen Camus still leads by a progressing gap over Jaden Johnson in 2nd place. With Howard Dunn 3rd, Nick Alexander still nursing front-end damage, is nearly 6 seconds away from the Aston, and currently in 4th place, still trying to hold himself away from the car in 5th. Right behind him, the 444 of Lee Evans. Donnie Linton, still on the charge back after his incident with Evans, is hungry for a top 5 here in this series after a lackluster result in Brands Hatch. He's hunting down 5th, currently a few seconds away down through turn 7. 6th place up and ahead of Bartek Kowolik in 7th, Wesley Ambrose in 8th, with Sean McNally in 9th, and Timo Fire in 10th place. Rudolf Slanieks we see right behind him there in 11th, and right behind him Alan O'Brien in 12th. Daniel O'Brien in 13th, with Ben Dexter 14th. We see here for Lewis McKenzie into the pit lane, the number 44 from 15th will drop down to 16th. As we see staying out is Sebastian Scaparo, inheriting 15th place. And it'll be likely the same case so far for Ruben Pereira, going up to 16th from his current standing of 17th, courtesy of that pit stop by McKenzie. Behind him then, having taken their mandatory pit stop so far, Morrissey, Barrett, and Zuzi, Markey, and Picorni. Nearest fights on track, I mean, we've got a few to possibly consider here. Fire, Lanieks, and McNally as a possible consideration. I would also say toss in there the possibility to see O'Brien as part of that fight, that being Alan O'Brien in the number 66. I'd say the primary of that fight, though, is going to be between Lanieks and Fire. V8 against V8. Ford and Aston Martin clashing heads for control of 10th place. 37 minutes, just under 38 left to go here in round 2, season 4 of the MSC ACC GT3 series. And what's been rather peculiar about this is much like Brands Hatch, albeit in far different conditions, is one of the major nemesis of any driver on track at the moment has been less so their fellow racing drivers. It's been more so the track itself. It has not been a particularly comfortable ride for many, as you can see there for the Aston Martin up in front of Lanieks, bottoming out on the exit of turn 7, spitting sparks up into the face of the 112, goes very late on the brakes in through Balderberg Harshbeld Bogt. Into the pit lane comes Alexander, so he's timing things about 7 minutes earlier than we would have expected. But of course, that front end damage, you can see that over that front left, quite considerable. And he had a little bit of damage on his right hand side owing to collisions he suffered out through turn 7 a few laps ago. He's into the pits then from 5th, joining him in the pit lane as it stands, the number 8 of Ruben Pereira. Number 44 in trouble, so it appears, and that's Lewis McKenzie. Behind him, you can see, is Jaden Johnson in the number 108 Bentley. He's had a really solid race today. He's been able to challenge then for 2nd place, currently outscoring his championship rival, as these two were the leading pair coming out of that first round of the championship. So it's going to be curious to see how things pick up for the run into the next round at Silverstone. It's also going to be a pretty solid day, all things considered, for Rudolph's Laniacs. Now, that's on the grounds he can get strategically the upper hand over Alexander as the one closest to him on the exit of round one. He finished second, with Johnson finishing third. So for Johnson, he is eyeing up his best result of the season so far. And from where he's standing, it will still be a considerable gap to make up. So I think our calculations were wrong. I think we originally did the calculations on the basis we assumed that Johnson finished second. That's not the case. He finished third. So taking a look at where things stand at the moment for Alexander, let's say, for example, he can make his way back up to fourth place by the end of this race. So say that strategy did work out for him, though I would say with a grain of salt here, it's not likely given how early he's come into the pits compared to his contemporaries, and he's not exactly given himself the cleanest portion of the track as he has rejoined into traffic. You can see up in front of him there is second place, being Jaden Johnson in the 108. Himself tucked in behind that of Lewis McKenzie up in front, and Alexander has a drive-through, so this can only get better for Laniacs and Johnson right now. That drive-through penalty has effectively sealed Alexander's fate here. He may not even see a top 10 by the end of this race, so he'll have no points to play with. And as it stands then, under that basis, Johnson will find himself with an 18-point advantage. He'll go up and ahead now from where he was 15 points coming out of round one. With 18 points in tow as well, he'll usurp control over Alexander. As for Laniacs, it could be a much closer bout between Bentley and Ford at the front of the field heading to the season midway. This has been detrimental for Alexander. This is the worst case scenario for the number 13, but I would not say that his championship chances have been scattered right here and now. This has only added a few extra steps to what is the climb to the championship title. Too early to call it, I would say, here at round 2 of 6. With 4 more rounds coming up for him to right these wrongs, this is just the slow climb back to the lead. But as it stands, he will lose the lead for the run into round 3 as he serves his drive-through. Oh, behave. He's got to stop, go 30. That's the end of the road. Yeah, I'm not even surprised anymore. Yeah, I honestly, possibly the most realistic reaction you could have to a situation like that. To think about it logically, right, he's come into the race, he's led, he's then lost the lead, he's then lost the podium because he's dropped down to 4th, dropped in behind Johnson, behind Dunn, then a drive-through, serves his drive-through, he gets served a 30-second penalty because he was speeding into the drive-through. It can't get much worse. It can't go on like this, can it? Well, as it would turn out, it can. We see here very close fighting. This is in the scope of 6th place right now, and this is Wesley Ambrose versus Bartek Kovolek down through turn 7. We see the Bentley. Yes, it is much more confident over the curbs, but it lacks some of that bite, some of those fangs that the BMW has, and that's what makes it such a good choice, the M4. But obviously, with any of these cars, you are trading off maneuverability for stability, and that's often been the case where that's a fairly straight line between the pair, and you place your dots wherever you find them here. You either have cars that are very nimble but woefully unstable, so that would be cars like the Lamborghini Huracan, for example, which we've seen have major stability problems, but when done right, it is an absolute bullet. Or you have cars that are very stable but lack some of that finer control in the corners. That would be your cars like the Bentley and the Aston. But they hit that sort of sweet spot in that sense. Actually, I would say much more aggressively on that end of the scale. That's going to be like, oh, never mind. We'll get away from that conversation in due course, because my word, big hit down through at turn. That was on the run down through turn. Turn 2. Contact there. Timo Fire collides with Bartek Kovolek in his fight for 6th place. BSR Twiglet in chat saying if he's fighting for the championship, he should carry on every point count. Well, not to rub salt in the wounds, but there's only 10 positions that actually award points in this series, as it uses the FIA Formula 1 scoring scheme of 25, 18, 15, 12, 10, 8, 4, 2, 6, 1. If I'm not mistaken. So the top 10 positions are the ones that net points. If he's not in the top 10, he's not getting any points. So I think given his situation where he'd already dropped down to around 14th place because he had done that drive-through penalty, and he'd also pitted earlier because he had damage to play with, then to be served a stop go 30 is effectively the game saying, well, look, you're finishing in 20th and you're getting no points in this round. So I don't blame him for that reaction. I think that's totally justifiable given his position. That is his race done, effectively. He may as well be served the black flag at that point, given the scoring structure. Now, if this was 20 positions award points, which we've seen in other championships, I would say, yeah, I totally agree. But yeah, it's 10 positions. This is what makes it so razor thin. And I think with a much larger grid than what we had last season, it makes things very, very tense. So that recent incident we saw there for Kovacic, yes, he's only dropped in behind Ambrose. You can see now with Timo Fire caught in the middle from 14th. He's not going to be pleased to see that Aston Martin anywhere near him after that incident out through turn 2. As we exit turn 3 into turn 4 now, the Aston presently still in front of him. Speaking of Astons, we see here exiting the pits after his pit stop now, Howard Dunn, who is looking at his first podium this season. Now, all fair play here to the number 23. He's knuckled down, and much like we saw in round 1, it's been a story of determination here for the 23. He's been able to get his hands dirty on this field today. He's been able to get into those fights. But what has been one of the most universal traits he possesses across the last round and this one is just ruthless consistency. He's been in and around that bracket for the top 5 and the top 10 the entire time, and he's had more consistency than the opponents around him. He's been in a much better position by that contrast because he has not faltered. He's not made mistakes that other drivers are making. He's been very clear and narrow on this one, and that kind of efficiency is what's rewarding him with these routine great results. Think of it as with no discredit to his performance and that of the Aston Martin, think of it almost as the tortoise and the hare. It's a case where, you know, the hare, it's very fast, but, you know, the hare rests during that race. Or I guess in this case, to make the analogy make any sense, the hare makes mistakes during its run. Yes, it's faster, but it's not consistent. It's slow and steady that wins the race. Or I suppose in this case, it's consistent and steady that wins the race. With that, we'll go and catch on board with some drivers from the pit lane as we see things are about to change inside of that top 10. Taking a look here, Sean McNally in the pit lane. We just saw cruising on by him, the number 66 of Alan O'Brien. It is worth pointing out now with Timo Fire out of the way, the 35's got clear line of sight on the 332, but was that knock enough to deal any significant damages to the BMW compared to where it was before? We do see what very is likely there some damage on the car, but it doesn't appear to be enough to knocking the confidence away for Kovacic in his fight with Ambrose. You see here that Laney X now getting up and around Scaparo down into turn 10. Coming into the pit lane, we also see there is Donnie Linton. Owen Camu in the meantime as well also came into the pit, so he'll be returning to the podium with Jaden Johnson staying out. Lee Evans also staying out here past the halfway mark. We do have a few drivers still straggling to get into the pit lane. Keep a close eye on that number 23 because he has been on a very steady climb of things. And that pit stop, I don't think is going to deal too significant a deal of damage to him here. Coming into the pits, I believe there was not the 444, but it was an AMG. Which AMG precisely marks the question? Well, I'm not entirely sure. Wasn't... Oh, it definitely looked like an AMG, but I believe matching the color scheme there, I really do need to get an eye test done because that matches the color scheme verbatim. That is Daniel O'Brien. Also coming in, Jaden Johnson. He's been on a real hot streak in the opening rounds, I should say, of this season. Brands Hatch gave him 3rd place, and right now he's on projections to meet 2nd by the end of this race in 26 minutes' time. It has been a very, very solid start, and with the current standing of things, with the retirement there out of this round by Alexander, this could be to the championship lead as we meet round 3 next week. We did have a momentary yellow flag out, and oh yes, we can see why that's for. It's for McNally. He's got front end damage. Not sure yet who his incident was with. We see in the pit lane still is O'Brien. Oh, I did not need to open the settings up to see that. We see Johnson across the line. So with Camu back up into the second place spot here, Evans stays out. This is all that matters right now, though, to Johnson, is just emerging for second place. He knows what he's got at the moment is more than enough. Given the fact that Owen Camu only has 8 points, he's got 10 points over that. He can take the hit to finish in second place because that is still going to keep him towards the front of that field, if not in the lead of the championship, by the way things stand at the moment. For Camu as well, there's also worth the discussion there. He holds the fastest lap. And if I'm not mistaken, actually, no, there is no fastest lap point for this championship. Now, I am quite surprised by that. Obviously, we were adhering 1-to-1 there for the Formula 1 structure of points distribution. I was really going to expect that extra point for the fastest lap, but oh well. I suppose in this case it is just raw positions that give us the helm of the championship. Not that that's going to particularly matter to Johnson, because as it stands, he's not the one with the fastest lap. That would be Owen Camu. You see up in front there, I think that is for the 112. Still trying to get up and around Scaparo, so Laniax had some trouble in the time since. We can see he's also got a bit of front end damage. Kovalik and Evans in the pit lane now. So for Owen Camu, he's going to move back into the lead. Looking at his second career win in the last 2 seasons then, with his first having come up out of the last round of Season 3. A very short-lived drought then in this case for Camu. Number 86 there brought the white flags out. That's for Scaparo. But nothing to report as of yet there. We see in the pits is Evans. Ambrose stays out to inherit second place. Johnson third, Dunn fourth. So when Ambrose comes in, he's going to really be in this topic of the podium, the last puzzle piece to fall into place here, because that is going to give Dunn the scope of things for third. And that's going to give Johnson the scope of things for second place. Now we see here, just navigating through the traffic, up and alongside there on the run, out through turns 2 and 3 at Sturrenbach Canal. Was that of Morrissey in the 777 McLaren, currently 15th on the field. Evans on his way out. We'll see where he emerges, though. So it appears he's gone to the back of that top 5. So Linton may very well have done it to return to that top 5 after his incident far earlier in the race with Evans. We see for Ambrose, he is adamant to stay out as it stands right now. A very bizarre sight, a Bentley 2 and 3. Currently, from the first 2 rows, all British manufacturers, McLaren, Bentley and Aston Martin. And as it stands, it's going to be an all-British podium by looks of... Oh my goodness, there, huge hit for Ambrose. That was Steve O'Markey he just collided with there on the exit of turn 1, even into turn 2. Oh my goodness, gotta look at that. That scared the daylights out of me. I can only imagine what it's done for him there. Bang, on the exit. And it's an unfortunate spot. You can see what Markey was trying to do. He was trying to hold short so he could keep the outside line clear. He was trying to sort of hold himself away from the racing line. But the problem is he's accidentally on the racing line. You can see him with the hazards on. And that's just a huge bump there for him. Well, so far... It still keeps Ambrose up and ahead of Johnson, but of course we know when he comes into the pit lane that will quickly change. For Howard Dunn, he's been able to navigate the crowds nice and easy. I mean, it is really the case. The best way to describe how the 23 performs on track is easy does it. He is not a stressed driver. We don't see really any kind of stress out of Dunn. It's totally zen behind the wheel of that Aston Martin. I've never seen the likes out of any other driver so composed. Because usually always there's one thing. There's maybe one thing or another that you can identify with a driver, but it is a case here. This man is just incredibly relaxed, and I think that is maybe the key. You know, I think maybe this serves as some meaningful advice to any budding drivers out there. Maybe consider taking up some of the old meditation. Could very well be a feasible strat. I mean, to be relaxed behind the wheel, fewer mistakes, of course, and you're not pushing the car. And as you can see, there's proof in the pudding, because Dunn's about to be up to third place once again with Ambrose in the pits. nearby fights, and Zuzi and Morrissey, they're on the exit of Bolderberg Haschbelbocht, on the exit now of Jochen Rindt, heading into Jackie, exit turn 10. We see those two with Morrissey. Heavy front end damage. 144, much less. So for Dunn, he's back up to third place. Johnson second, Camus first. It's an all-British podium for the manufacturers. McLaren, Bentley and Aston Martin dominating here in Belgium. I don't think I'd ever see the sight. We've seen Bentley win here before. But it is a rare thing to see that podium with those three manufacturers. I mean, that specific lineup is bringing great joy to me. We see it has been a real call to arms here for that number 10 over the course of this race. After that incident that he had with Evans, he was not going to be taking this one sitting down. And for Donnie Linton, he's back up to fourth place. He's really soldiered on in the midst of things. He's actually seen a net improvement to position from where he started. He started on that third row, and as it stands there now marks the second row of this grid. It was a long journey to find himself in that, some 40 minutes and a single pit stop in so far. Still 20 minutes left to go here in round 2, but he has done quite a solid mission so far to find himself back up to fourth. He's 8.1 seconds up the road from Evans as it stands, as we see it with Ben Dexter having come into the pits. A very late pit stop as he now just drops off the jacks. We see behind him there is Ruben Pereira. The one driver still yet to have come in, Sebastian Scaparo in the number 86 Porsche. Close fight to consider. Sean McNally versus Rudolph's Laney X. This is on the run in towards turn 7. Mercedes and the Mustang, as we're firmly now in nighttime conditions here in Zolder. Close but no cigar. You can see that front end damage is starting to have a bit of a knock-on effect here for McNally. He is pushing the car to keep with the Mustang, but there is this degree of control worth monitoring between the pairs. You can see Mustang still holding strong. That's not to say that Laney X doesn't have any damage himself. You can see the front end not looking particularly grand, but it's a far cry of what we're seeing on the Mercedes tucked in behind. Something worth noting, and this was brought to our attention here, Evans is slowly catching up to Linton now with 18.5 minutes left to go in this race. 7.6 seconds to clear. He's got quite a long journey. He's just on the run in towards Terlemenbocht as we see Linton on the exit. So he's got some distance to clear and quite a lot of traffic as well. You can see stacking in behind the number 10. That will be something we monitor over the next 18 minutes or so. Back on with Laney X v McNally. Up in front of him there, Timo Fire. So there is definitely the considerations for a 9th place. We've got to catch on board here with the Mustang. Actually, we'll stay on board with the Aston. I think we just got very lucky with the positioning of where we were last on board with. This is with Timo Fire. So this could very well be the scope of a new fight here for 9th place. 0.8 of a second in closing. You can see the Mustang cloaked in the shadows. This is a frightening sight for the Aston. It's contact! It's contact out through Terlemenbocht as the Aston runs wide. Oh my goodness. How many more shocks are we going to take over the course of this race? I simply just cannot stand it. We see for the Aston, he is still rolling very slowly down. So I think there's something cut off on the run in to Terlemen. I'm not quite sure what it is yet. But you can see that there was a point here, watching on board with the Aston, albeit we're looking out behind it. But it's as we get past that first, then second bump there, then something just switches off because he drops any and all throttle. That battle of 9th is very much over. We can see stopped at the side of the track. Yellow flags out at the moment then for Timo Fire. The 67 in serious trouble. So it appears that Aston could be out of this race. So we see, and then we've done still 3rd place so far. A very bizarre set of events unfolding here as we approach the final quarter hour of racing at round 2. Also getting a look into the next week of racing. I mean, it is quite a stacked out calendar. We're going catch on board here with some nearby fighting. I believe we still have much to discuss in the terms here between Laney X and McNally. 1 second between the pair, and the newly found 9th place for Rudolf Slanieks. Taking a look into that next week, we've got quite the ensemble of events to follow. So on Monday, on the 23rd, we've got the opening round of Fats GT Season 10. On the 24th thereafter, we've got the final round of TRC Sprint Cup EU Season 5. On Wednesday, we've got the return of the Competizione Performance League GT4 Pro-Am Cup America Series in Season 3. We had a week's delay due to weather conditions over on the American East Coast that delayed our chances to go live earlier on this week. We'll be catching back up with them next Wednesday. We've also got the second round of VSR Season 11. We kicked the season off at the Nürburgring Nordschleife just earlier this week, and that was a fantastic opener. On Friday, we've got the follow-up round for this series here. We get into round 3 at the season midway at Silverstone for the MSC ACC GT3 Series, Season 4, Round 3 on Friday the 27th. 3 rounds on the following Saturday. We've got AXRL's Southern Summer Endurance Series. We've got the Competizione Performance League World Series and the Race Club UK Shooting Stars Cup. We've got follow-up rounds for all of those on the 28th, and then on the 29th, we're back in for Round 7 of the NLRL Sunday League. Coming up this weekend, though, we've got a one-off round with HCCL, the Ginetta Cup at Silverstone. We've also got the final round of Console Endurance Series Season 2, and then we get Round 6 of the Sunday League this coming Sunday. A lot to expect, then, in the course of this weekend and into the next week as we get closer to Easter. So taking a look as we drop into the last quarter hour of racing, Owen Camu leads ahead of Jaden Johnson, Howard Dunn in 3rd, with Donnie Linton 4th, and Lee Evans rounds out the top 5. Bartek Kowalik in 6th place, ahead of Wesley Ambrose 7th, Alan O'Brien in 8th, with Rudolf Slanieks 9th. We see there trouble for Sean McNally as he is forced to cut out through turn 10. Currently 10th on the field, was very close to his chances to fight for 9th, but that has now since been squandered. Daniel O'Brien in 11th place, with Jonathan Barrett in 12th, Grady and Zuzi in 13th place, with that of Lewis McKenzie in 14th, ahead of Liam Morrissey in 15th. Ben Dexter right behind him there, 16th place. This could be in for a fight of 15th between the McLaren and the BMW as they head into Turlem and Bocht. You see right behind them there, the lapping number 1 of Camu. Scaparo 17th, Steve O'Markey in 18th, Milan Picorni 19th, Timo Fire rounds out the top 20. Ruben Pereira, a soft DNF by looks of it there. He's in 21st and currently still in the pit lane for the foreseeable future. We see here with Owen Camu, this is a very stressful place for him to be, caught in between that fight we just caught on with between Morrissey and Dexter. You see up in front there is Liam Morrissey. Behind him is Ben Dexter. And now it is worth observing that gap still closing in between Evans and Linton. That was about some 8 seconds not long ago. It's now 6.6 seconds. Meanwhile, we see there for Camu. Gets clear of the traffic, still in the lead. Just under 13 minutes to go. Getting a look back in here with Morrissey v Dexter. We see up in front is Nzuzi in the 144. So this could be a fight for 14th place we're about to see here. We'll not hold our breath to it, as it's still been very close between the McLaren and the BMW. Recent struggles for the Ferrari have definitely revealed a thing or two. The 332 now has a drive through. It's Wesley Ambrose with Bentley. Down in 7th place, we see him stuck in behind there. That's the 2nd place Bentley of Jaden Johnson. Up in front is Timo Fire in the number 67, Aston Martin. That has been a real sudden shock to the system for Ambrose. He was looking for a solid result today, and it has come apart in the last 15 minutes. Out through Boulderberg, Haspel Bocht. In through to Jochen Rindt. This will be an almost immediate run to the pit lane. Now, fortunately for him, as we've seen to be in some other cases as well, this is a very short pit lane to get... Oh my God! Can he hold it? Can he hold it? Can he hold it? Oh, no, he's just too short of it. Oh, I was about to say, if he could slide that into the pit lane, that would have made a fantastic clip there for him, but pity there. That's has gone the way it has. He's obviously been very enthusiastic to get into the pits. We've seen drivers do this before, but I don't think he was expecting Johnson to get on the brakes that early. Had to swerve out, took that grass, and ultimately that's what left him to slide on his run into the pit. So it's only gone from bad to worse here as he drops out of the top 10. Actually, that might be up for debate here because this is Daniel O'Brien in 11th. Actually, no, we were about to see it here, I think. Yeah, it does appear to be the case. He will be close enough to fight, I believe. Or not. Oh, wait, no. No. I'd say there's still chance there. 10.5 minutes possible. Fortunately, unlike what happened for Nick Alexander, he's not been dealt with a stop-go 30 on top of serving his drive-through. I mean, that was just killer. That was the game beating him down. I really don't know how to feel about that one. That felt horrible to watch. What's been curious as well is we've noted that Scaparo has done a pit lane, but he's done a pit stop even, so he's been into the pit lane, but he's not cleared the mandate. Well, the mandate was for fuel, to refuel on the car, so the tires were a totally optional accessory, but the fuel is what dictated the mandate, so you had to put fuel on the car. It didn't matter how much, but you needed to refuel. Oh, in the background there, trouble for Steve O'Markey into the wall, pivots out past turn 5, the number 68 into the wall, as we see here down through the Kleiner chicane. We see this has caught a few drivers out already over the course of this race. We see there, just tucks over that second curb, kicks the back end light, the front end hooks in, the back end tries to follow, the car just rotates in. That's trouble for Steve O'Markey as he rejoins the field. Back on with Camus. And we'll be catching back in now here with Linton and Evans because that gap is starting to quickly draw down to 5.6 seconds. The Mercedes has been on quite the mission so far. It's also worth pointing out the potential for a three-way split here. We do see 3 cars very close to one another. That being Alan O'Brien in the number 66 McLaren just up in front here of Rudolf Slaniak. The 112 Ford Mustang right along with him, and then right behind those two as well, Sean McNally with Mercedes AMG. Ford, McLaren and Mercedes to possibly scrap then for the aggregate position of 7th. Eight minutes left to go then for these drivers. We'll go and catch back on board with some of the other drivers around the field we see here. Actually, we might very well stay on board with Laniacs because we can see now that gap is far, far closer than the data previously gave us in some last observations, and that only gets better here for him. Out through Lucien Bianchi boxes, Alan O'Brien takes a considerable chunk of gravel with him, and that drops the gap way down. So we are now looking at the fight of 7th place between these two. On the exit of the Kleiner chicane, we'll stay on board then with Rudolf Slaniak in the 112 Mustang. You see with that McLaren almost sort of dragging its feet a bit there on the run through this last lap. Out through Jochen Rindt. Alan O'Brien has really pushed that car, and now it's starting to push him back. That's the problem now he faces with McLaren. And an even worse sight for him, because looking into his rearview mirror would reveal near enough the entirety of the grille of that Mustang. But now as he emerges up and alongside, it is side by side between these two on the run into Ernst corner. Does O'Brien yield then is the real question. Heading down through to turn one, he tries to hold on there, but going up and around the outside at Ernst corner goes Rudolf Slanieks to 7th. Starting to see quite catastrophic fall off for the tyres on the number 66. Now, albeit it's not the worst culprit on this field for tyre degradation, but it is definitely in a close second or third place for that accolade alone. The gap between Linton and Evans, that has now dropped beneath 5 seconds, and with 5 minutes left to go, there is still great chances. Looking in this last lap, with performance having very recently shifted back in favour of Linton, up 3/10 over Evans in the last lap just gone. There is still that chance, and it is becoming more and more likely with every lap passing. But with 5.5 minutes left, taking a look with the number 1 car having just started lap 36, coming in and around a 1:29 each lap, let's say 1.5 minutes there. With 5.5 minutes left to go, we are looking just a little under 4 more laps there, roughly, before the end of this race. May very well be spot on 4 laps if he's able to really hammer down. We've seen his fastest lap to be a 1:28.3 dead over the course of this race. Looking back in, Linton v Evans, one heavy consideration over the course of the second half of round 2. You can see off in the background there was the emerging 444, still hunting down Linton. These two having fought previously in this race alone for position on track, ultimately resulting in the collision down here at turn 10 that saw Linton turned around in the early stages of today's race. He has fought things back valiantly to 4th and is looking at a very solid points haul compared to how things ended for him in the last race at Brands Hatch. We see in that last lap just gone was a difference of 0.09 of a second. So the margin's very thin this time now in benefit of Evans opposed to Linton. We'll catch on with those two in due course, taking a look around the field to see where those nearest fights are coming from. Alan O'Brien versus Sean McNally, one to consider. Bear in mind, O'Brien having recently lost position down at turn 1 a few laps ago to Rudolf Slanieks. We see here with McNally catching up at a fast rate of knots. So we are looking at a defensive fight from O'Brien's point of view for 8th place. The Mercedes, bear in mind, with front aero damage, is challenging for position, so it's not over yet for McNally. We see he's got him on the straightaways here. That's a real performance gamble, that engine. 6.3 litre over the twin-turbo 4-litre unit for the McLaren. We see a bit of oversteer on exit of turn 1. That got very, very ugly for just a moment there. That could have ended in disaster for McNally. He's done very well to save the car on the exit of turn 1. Making our way through turn 3 now into turn 4. We see with that front end damage, he wasn't having a particularly great time of it up until Lucien Bianchi boxed, and this has been a real Achilles heel for Alan O'Brien. It's been the same area that allowed Laniacs to catch up to him on the run into Sector 2, and it's now been the same area to facilitate that overtake for McNally, now up to 8th. O'Brien drops to 9th place then. Still holding on to a top 10. He's up and ahead of his fellow O'Brien, that being Daniel O'Brien, 10th place in the number 88 McLaren. It's been a very rough time for him in these last couple of laps. He's really been pushed around here by some of the other drivers, come up and took advantage of the withering tyres on that number 66. 2 minutes left to go. So as per the leading car for Owen Camo, we are looking here at the penultimate lap of racing. We will be coming up onto the last lap just coming up next. Number 68 has just been dished out with a stop-go 30-second penalty, so that pertains to Steve O'Markey with Mercedes AMG. And that was for speeding in the pit lane. We see there getting up and around him was that recent fight for McNally v O'Brien. So those two get up and around him. The exit of turns 2 and 3. Oh, hang on a moment there, heading in towards the wall, but is stopped by the gravel on the exit of Canal is Steve O'Markey. Very lucky to have not ended up in the wall again. We see catching up to him is Howard Dunn, looking at his first podium of the season after what has been a very, very solid run of things with Aston Martin.
Alright man, the leader is on the final lap. Give it a final push.
Owen Camus is only 1 lap away from ending his race drought. Only a single round he's had to wait since his next possible race win, having won last time out in the season finale at season 3 in Italy. As for Jaden Johnson, he's looking at his best result this season, 2nd place, and that will put him, by looks of things, by our calculations, in the lead of the championship, albeit what was previously by a thin margin is anything but now, with the retirement in this race of championship leader after round 1, Nick Alexander. As for Howard Dunn, he's seeing his first podium in MSC, so it appears, since his entry last round. A lot more to follow then for Donnie Linton. He still holds distance over Lee Evans. You can see the distance between the pair expressed there as you just see the lights for the 444 appearing as the number 10 rounded through Boulderberg Harshbell box. But we'll be going to catch on board here with Owen Camus. Looking to get on board then with the number 1, making his way down towards the line. We catch on with him just on the exit of turn 9. He makes his way in towards turn 10. He's waited, albeit a short manner of time, since his last win in Italy at the trailing end of season 3, but back on form after a troubled start to the season. It's redemption at round 2. Very early on then, the checkered flag flies. Owen Camus wins in Zolder. A very solid result indeed for him. He's fought hard for that one. Great pace throughout. Redemption out of Brands Hatch. The dry conditions much more favourable of the McLaren 720S. Taking a look at the rest of the field then. Jaden Johnson not far from the line as he makes his way down towards turn 10. The fireworks already out to greet the number 1, and now it will too greet the 108. Making his way to line. Johnson, on his best result in the season, will overtake the championship lead away from Alexander. The Bentley will lead heading to round 3. A fantastic 2nd place result. And for Howard Dunn, we're about to see him to the line in a moment's time as he makes his way to turn 8. His first podium coming up just around the corner. A brilliant result then for Aston Martin. 3rd place in today's race. As for Dunn, he was 4th in the championship. He's going to be on the podium heading in to round 3 in Silverstone at the home of that Aston Martin. Making his way to the line for the manufacturers. It's a British top 3 there. McLaren, Bentley and Aston Martin on the podium. Then we see to the line not far from now. Great resolve and a revenge drive here for Donnie Linton. He finishes up and ahead of Lee Evans to make the 4th and 5th place spots of that top 5. What a turnaround here. And that's net positive for him. He started 3rd row, finishes 2nd. Evans to the line, 5th place. We see the rest of the result then. Bartek Kavolik in 6th, Rudolf Slanieks in 7th, Sean McNally in 8th, Alan O'Brien in 9th, and Daniel O'Brien in 10th. Wesley Ambrose 11th, Jonathan Barrett in 12th. We see Lewis McKenzie 13th, Ben Dexter 14th, Grady Nzuzi in 15th, Liam Morrissey in 16th place, Sebastian Scaparo in 17th, Milan Piconi in 18th, and Steve O'Markey in 19th place. So it appears then DNFs for Timo Fire, Ruben Pereira, Nick Alexander, Pete Morgan, and Craig Stewart. Well, what an end to this round. And the first endurance of the season goes to Owen Camus, back on form after Italy. Jaden Johnson reveling in that 2nd place finish. This has been a real turn of great luck for him. That Bentley, very clearly the right choice, coming forward away from his time with Ferrari. Was 3rd in the last race, 2nd here in Zolder. I think we're very likely to see a Johnson win by the end of this season. Mark my words on that one. Same story for this one here. Howard Dunn, a brilliant drive in the 23 Aston. Marks 3rd place there. Brilliant result for him. He'll be 3rd in the championship heading to Silverstone. Only some 60 miles from the factories where that car was built over in Warwickshire. What a race it has been today then. Brilliant, brilliant stuff. Very well done then to Owen Camus, your race winner for round 2 of the championship. Very well done for the podium as well for Johnson and Dunn. Very well done for the rest of the drivers to see their way to the checkered flag today. Every point counts at the end of the day. We'll see how all of this stacks up when we go back to this series next Friday at round 3 when we head to the Grand Prix Circuit Silverstone on the county lines between Northamptonshire and Buckinghamshire at the home of the British Grand Prix. That's all from us here on TRTN. Our next broadcast then comes up tomorrow at 1 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time for our British viewers there. That will be going to Silverstone to see the Ginetta Cup race with HCCL. Do look forward to that one. That's going to be a 60-minute race coming up there with plenty of drivers that we've seen over the course of HCCL and a few other championships and plenty of new names to join us for the first time. Look forward to that one. That's all from us for now. Until then, have a wonderful rest of your evening. Take care. Good night.